Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about how to monitor your training by using something known as RPE, or the rate of perceived exertion. Or rate of perceived effort. So this is the amount of effort you feel that you're putting into your running at any given time in any given session. So we generally use a grading system out of 10, where 1 would be a walk, 10 would be your all-out max sprint pace that you couldn't keep up for maybe more than 50, 60 meters, 100 meters max. So, and then the various runs would be on a spectrum of that. So, for example, if you start on your longer easy run, you would probably have an RPE of 3 out of 10 at the start of that. So it should feel really nice and comfortable, feel like you can almost run forever. But by the end of it, because it's maybe longer than you're used to, that RPE score might be more of a 4, possibly pushing a 5 out of 10 by the end because of fatigue. So your effort level might have to go up in order to keep going. Whereas if you're doing a tempo run, and all of these things are going to be explained in later subsequent videos, then you might start at maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10 for your tempo run, and by the end it'll feel more like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in terms of effort. Now, as with the previous ways of monitoring your training, heart rates and pace zones, they all have the different benefits and drawbacks. And again, I'm going to talk you through what I think the benefits are and any drawbacks of this method, so that you've got a really good, clear idea about which ones you think might suit you best as in terms of your personality and drive and what you want to achieve in your running. So what I think is one of the biggest benefits for using RPE as a method of thinking about what training you do and at what level is because it really does factor in all the different issues, problems, controllables and uncontrollables that some of the others don't. So your rate of perceived effort or rate of perceived exertion will take into account things like whether you're a bit under the weather, if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're feeling under pressure about anything. It will take into account if you're exhausted because you've been overtraining, dehydration, what the weather's like, the terrain that you're actually running on, because all of those factors will have an impact on how you perceive your effort level to be. So for example, if I'm running as hard as I can, but it's on grass, my RPE might be 8 out of 10, but I'm definitely going to be slower running on grass as hard as I can compared to running on tarmac as hard as I can. So that's where pace, if I just went by pace zone, that wouldn't consider the surface that I'm running on, and therefore I could end up disappointing myself. Whereas if I'm using RPE, then as long as I'm running at an effort level that I feel is the effort level I'm trying to hit, then it doesn't matter so much about the pace zone that I'm in at the time, because I know my body's working at that correct effort. So they are all the different factors that are taken into account when you use RPE as a method of thinking about how you're going to approach one of your training runs. The other thing that I like about RPE is that it removes any potential anxiety someone might have about trying to hit specific paces or trying to keep their heart rate to a certain level. So you can not have to worry about keep looking at your watch or keep speeding up or slowing down, because you're just thinking about the effort level that you're putting in. So if you're maintaining, you get to an effort level and you just maintain that effort level, that's a lot easier for people to deal with than having to try to keep to certain paces. Particularly if you find keeping to a pace quite stressful or difficult to do, as long as you're thinking about the effort level you're putting in, that can be a much easier thing to help you with. Any drawbacks? Well, yes, in that it can be frustrating to those people who are particularly keen on numbers and data and getting things accurate. This as opposed to those kind of people might be seen as a bit of a wishy-washy kind of approach, because it's all based on what's going on in your head. So if you're someone who actually struggles with the mental side of running, RPE either can be really liberating because all of a sudden you're not feeling so stressed, or it can be quite difficult to cope with because you don't feel like you've got something strong and specific material enough to hang your coat on. So I think it's really important that we've gone through all these different methods, and then you pick and choose which ones you prefer to use based on your own personality and what you feel comfortable with. For most of my runners that I work with, we use a combination of RPE and pace zones rather than heart rate zone, but that is completely dependent on you. Some people I've worked with in the past and still do like to analyze their heart rate a lot. I don't know how much benefit it is for them, but they really like to do that. So that it is useful. I think, like I've said before, heart rate can be useful when you're looking at trends over longer term. But personally, I really like RPE because of all the factors that it takes into account. And because I'm often quite tired and exhausted from lack of sleep, it also means that I'm less stressed about trying to hit particular paces when I'm training myself, as opposed to training other people too. So over those last few videos, you've had a look at all the different main ways that people use to consider how they're approaching their running: heart rate training, rate of perceived effort or perceived exertion, which was this one, and using pace zones. So I think that's all to be said about those things for sure at the moment, but if in Ask Me Anything, we will talk about that as well. All right, so I will see you on the next video.